This is Train to Perform, the undisputed alpha podcast in training, fitness, and sports performance. Here, you'll develop your skills with the cold, hard facts in fitness, sports performance, recovery, and nutrition. Real, tried and true, evidence-based facts that have been proven to move you faster, move you stronger, and move you forward. Now, here's your host of Train to Perform, Julian Sisman.
And welcome back to another episode of the Train to Perform podcast, here with your host, Julian Sisman. Today we have on John Patrick. He is a human performance strength coach at a high school in Georgia, and has had a number of different roles at universities, from Youngstown State to more recently UNC Charlotte. We talk about a number of different things, his journey as a strength coach, how he went from a football player to becoming a strength coach to working pretty much all day to a GA position, and building his philosophy and methodologies from different strength coaches that he worked with, alongside learning different things, not only about the strength and conditioning aspects, but the leadership, the helping kids really become, building their character. And we touch on a lot of these topics in our conversation, and especially in his role at the academy that he is at in Georgia. It's a little bit different than many. It's not your normal strength conditioning position. So we cover on what he does and how he implements training amongst the students at this academy. From the conversation, it sounds like it's a very well-known academy that works with some higher-end athletes, but also very intelligent young kids. So hope you guys enjoy it. Again, please, if you enjoy this podcast, please rate, review it, share it, check out other episodes that we provide. And thank you. Appreciate it.
So yeah, just kind of fill me in on, why you got into the field, strength and conditioning. I know you are from Ohio, right? So, it's big up there. I actually went to Ohio State, played soccer there. So I know what it's like out there. It's pretty nice. I will admit.
Yeah. I got in the profession, just for the love of the weight room, right? Like, that was my first and foremost. I didn't really know when I went to a really small high school. So when I first got into it, I wasn't really sure, like, the difference between my guidance counselor didn't really educate me very much on the different degrees out there. But, I didn't know really the difference between a strength coach or like a personal trainer or a physical therapist. I just thought it was like, you get in the profession, you can do what you want to do. Right. So, and plus, in high school, I really fell in with the weight room, like in love, just because, I played football in high school. I went on to play, college athletics, but, we were lifting in middle school, and the thing is, we had two brothers that were football coaches that, there was about probably 10 or 15 of us, and we went in like the janitor's closet right off the gymnasium, and they had like 2 squat racks, 2 bench presses, a leg curl, leg extension, and then we had a lat pull down, machine, old universal machine in there. That's where we started lifting, right? And then after we got done lifting, we all played basketball together right outside the gym. And then, that was like the thing to do. That was tradition, like year after year. You knew guys that growing up that did that, and like that was it, So just that bond, I think, of lifting weights, being with people, and then all of a sudden, that fed into high school. Our high school football coach was our strength coach. And, I think in my graduating class, I had 75 kids or something like that. So it was a real small rural school out in Ohio. outside of the city of Youngstown. And, our strength coach, our football coach was a strength coach, and he did, looking back now, he did an amazing job with what we had, just the equipment we had and the additions. And, I know my senior year, they actually, we were training in a boiler room underneath the school. So I was in a boiler room. So it was like, it was an old locker room. So like one, there was a squat rack in one shower, and then the other shower was another squat rack. And we had two like bench press units and like a trap bar deadlift unit. And this is like in the mid 90s, early 90s, mid 90s. And we had another squat rack like in a hallway. And that's where like that was like our football locker room. And then my senior year, they actually expanded out off the wood shop. They put like a nice little weight room out there. I think we had like 3 squat racks and 3 benches and like, some couple machines and stuff. But that's where, just getting after it and training and, just that, I really hate to use the term blue collar, but, we were a bunch of farm boys out from Ohio, and we trained, and then during the summer months, if we weren't playing football, we were baling hay, so that kind of like, it just instilled at us, and we went from there. And that carried over to college. And I played at a D3 school up in Ohio, didn't have a strength coach. And, our DC was considered our strength coach, and he would put the workout on the weight room door. And then some guys would do it, some guys wouldn't. And, but we all got along, and, more or less guys did it because they knew how it was bred into them. Right. So
yeah,
that's how it really got into the profession. And then, eventually you do it for kind of like your own self-benefit, right? Like, hey, I want to get stronger. I want to get bigger muscles and all this stuff when you're younger. Right. And then, all of a sudden you see how much it helps your athleticism. If you do have an injury, how quick you bounce back from injury. And then all of a sudden you actually start coaching people, and you see how it benefits them. And then all of a sudden, I think we all enjoy winning when it comes to athletics. And I think that's where, okay, hey, I want to train to get better so I can win championships. But then when you're a coach, same thing. But then all of a sudden you're like, I want to coach people because it's beneficial to them and it helps them. Right. So that's where, and there's a transition of everybody's career as we go through is like, you have that transition where that aha moment, like, hey, I like doing this because I'm making an impact on X, Y, and Z. Right. And I really fell in love with helping people and helping athletes and, seeing a smile on the face or bringing the weight room together. There's no better feeling to me right now than when an athlete, reaches back, it may be an athlete I trained, 15 years ago, and they go, hey, coach, remember this time when we did this, or remember this time when we did that. And they don't talk about the game or the winning run, or they talk about, hey, remember that time during the summer that we did this, that was awesome. So those memories, really, really pay through. But that's a big thing is I think high school and playing athletics and kind of building into what the profession really was in the elementary sense. I wasn't really sure what a personal trainer or strength coach was, but eventually those people around me that I came in contact with helped mold me into or my philosophy as far as what it was really about, right? Like my football coach in high school, his name's Rich McClellan. I stay in contact with him still today. And the big thing is, he taught us a lot of ways. And that was that was 1991 through 95. And we were doing some things that are coming back around nowadays, right? Like the whole trap bar deadlift dilemma, the whole, safety squat bar, half field squat dilemma, not doing Olympic lifts, doing jumps and sprints instead of that, doing med ball throws. I don't know if I always mention this to some people, but Dick Hartzell, the individual that makes the big rubber bands, a lot of people use them for like resistance running and stretching and stuff like that. So I actually worked for him out of college. He's from Youngstown, Ohio, but all those schools around the area were training with these bands. So there's about 30 high schools in that vicinity that they had his units and his stuff at. This is late. This is like I said, this is late 80s, early 90s that people are using this to do explosive squats, to do running drills, like stuff like that, and that stuff's still around today, right? So we were training like that back then. And like you said, you look on Twitter nowadays and like it's the same stuff coming up, right? Like it's just a regurgitation of information, and whoever the most popular person is says something, and then all of a sudden it catches on like wildfire, right? So, but getting back to the topic, that's how I fell in love with it. I think you get out of college and you think that you're going to win these championships and you want to work for these caliber teams, these big logo teams. But at the end of the day, you can win as many championships as you want. But at the end of the day, if you're not helping people or if you're just in it for yourself, it's really you're gonna feel empty inside, right? So, you know, I've worked at some decent schools, some very tradition rich schools. But at the end of the day, I could care less, you know, I've won championships, but I could care less about that. I really care about those kids and really making an impact in those memories, right? That's what it's really all about. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much why I got into it as well. It's just, more or less, because I'm outside the DC area and I played mostly soccer and, you know, it was like, you know, one thing led to another from like injuries to like, working with a speed and agility, you know, coach and realizing like, hey, I kind of like this, I see what they do, see how they impacted me. So, you know, they were the first like place that I started to work at. And then, you know, one thing led to another. You know, I kind of went to a more commercial gym. I've never actually worked in a college setting. I've only been in like the private sector. But it's really, it like you said, like it's like helping these kids. Like I think it's really important and like, you know, educating them on, you know, why the strength, you know, the agility and all that kind of stuff is important. The nutrition, this, you know, all the whole, you know, list of things that you can go on about, like how it will impact them on their, you know, their performance in their sport. So that's awesome. So you went to, you know, college,
right?
When you finished, did you go directly into coaching or were you like in a college setting, or did you go, you know, a different route?
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly where to go. So like, right out of college, I worked for Dick Hartzell, who invented the big rubber bands. He had a gym in Youngstown, Ohio. So right out of college, and even my senior year of college, I finished up playing football and, I started working for him part-time and then eventually it grew into full-time. But, at that time, that was the late 90s, and the bands were getting really big into baseball with stretching and mobility work and stuff like that. So it was kind of, I got into, I worked for a minor league baseball team. It was a 3-month, I think we played 84 games in 90 days. It was independent baseball team out of Canton, Ohio in the Frontier League. And, you know, it was all young kids right out of college. So like 22 to like 27, they're trying to make it to the big league. So I got thrown into there because I knew the manager. I trained the manager's son, and he's like, hey, you know, he was from Youngstown. He's like, hey, do you want to come do this? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. You know, so and I played baseball in high school. I wasn't a really good baseball player at all, but you know, I enjoyed, you know, using these bands and preaching the message and trying to help everybody out, right? So went and did that for, you know, until the end of August, until September, until the season was over. Really good experience. And then from there, I went back working for Dick Hartzell for about a year. And I did some other jobs on the side. So I would work at, you know, I worked at a high school, and I worked at a trucking company, you know, to make ends meet. So I worked I think I got up, I went and worked at, I think it was like 4:30 in the morning until 1 part-time at a trucking company, Estes Trucking Company. It was in West Middlesex, PA. I drove like 35 miles, worked. And then on the way home around 1 o'clock, I worked at Austintown Fitch High School, which is a D1 school in Austintown, Ohio, outside of Youngstown, roughly about 4,000 or 5,000 students. It's a big school. And I worked there part-time. They had a weight room there that was also a community center. So the kids would use the weight room for classes and to train after school. And then after a certain time, I think it was like 5:30 or something like that, it opened up to the community. So the community could pay it was a really cheap cost. I think it was like $150 a year or something like that. And they could go in and use the facility after that. So I did that. I got there early dismissal, which was 1 p.m. I might train myself, and then I would be there till like 5 o'clock, 5 or 6, just to supervise and check some members in. And then I worked at Dick Hartzell's little facility until like 9, training kids. And I did that for about, I want to say maybe like 7 or 8 months, just consistently. Like it was probably about, 6 days a week I was doing that. And eventually I'm like, hey, like, what's the next step, right? Like I have this degree, I'm kind of using it. I'm not really using it. I want to get in this full time. So I found an entrance way to get back into minor league baseball. So I got worked for spring training for the Detroit Tigers for a period of time, and worked rookie ball. And then from rookie ball, I went to extended springs training with the Cleveland Indians. So Cleveland Indians, I went down to Florida. That's when they were back in, I think it was a Grapefruit League or whatnot down in Florida. And I worked there for a season. It just happened that I was repositioned. The minor league team was back in Youngstown. So I just got repositioned back in Youngstown. I could live at home with my parents and keep the money for a stipend or whatnot, for the housing stipend. So it was really good. So I worked there for a year, and then I wanted to get my master's. So that's where pretty much everything started off as far as college goes, is I wanted to get a graduate. I was applying for GA positions, graduate assistant positions everywhere, and finally one stuck. And I got my first GA position June of 2001. So about 2 years out of college. And that's where the collegiate realm went. I wasn't really sure what a GA strength conditioning coach did. Like that was like back in the time. That was before internet, kind of. It was like when AOL, you had your disc, and you plugged it in, and then it took up the phone and did all that stuff. And so I wasn't sure what they really did, So I talked to the guy. That was at University of Texas, El Paso. So El Paso, Texas. I was living in Ohio at the time, and I drove cross country to El Paso. It took me about, I think it was like 30 or 31 hours. And that's where I started my GA position, So I didn't know what I was getting into at all. But it was a great experience. It really was. And it kind of got me out of my comfort zone because, Florida was like, when I was in the minor league with professional baseball, it was only about a 12 or 13 hour drive back to Ohio from where I was at. But now I'm totally cross country, kind of not really, I had some family members in Florida at the time that I was near, but like when I was in El Paso, Texas, it was kind of like start over from scratch. Right. So,
where did you live?
I kind of dove into strength conditioning and kind of absorbed everything and kind of, tunnel vision and this is the path, because it gave me comfort, right? Like you're away from your parents and stuff. So you kind of engulf yourself in those kind of things. And it right from there was like 24/7 strength conditioning. So, there's some hiccups along the way or whatnot, but it was pretty awesome. So
did you have to did they provide housing? Cause in
my first GA position, they did not. So I remember I got paid $580 a month. Right. And my housing was like $450 a month. So, and this is back in like 2001. Like I had no idea so I had some money saved up when I was working, 3 jobs, but like within a semester, like after a semester, I blew through that pretty quick. Right. Like I'm 20, I think I was 23 or 24 years old. I thought I was the king of the world, and I'm on my own, so I'm blowing through money left and right. But, the school provided that, they provided, that money, but they paid for books, we got some meals here and there, but I mean, it was cool, no real time to get like a part-time job or anything, cause you're working 24/7, but, you really find out if you really want to be a collegiate strength coach right then and there, and I think, I think a lot of kids nowadays they graduate college and then all of a sudden they think they deserve a position right away, a paying position, right? But I think you really have to find out, if it's something you really, really want to do. And that from that point, I had an opportunity that I could have gave up and be like, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to go work at, the private sector, or I'm going to go work at this. But that was the point. I'm like, hey, this relationship with these kids, that demographic that you're working with, that 18 to 20-year-old kid, is a special demographic. It's something at that time I related to them really, really well. And just the competition level, like being a former collegiate athlete, being around former collegiate athletes, it was just like, okay, I understand their thought process, and I understand how to, communicate with them. Even though I'm close in age, I can still demand and get respect from them because they understand what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? So that was pretty cool too. So that's where kind of kind of fell in love with the collegiate realm. Obviously, there's always hiccups, or there's always other opportunities. So it's just a matter of finding out what fits for you at that right time, right? So,
yeah, I know I relate well with you about what you said about deserving to get paid immediately when I kind of a little bit about myself. Like, I didn't have an undergrad in exercise science kinesiology. I just kind of connected with coaches around here, and I was like, look, man, I want to learn. Like, I would show up and for free help out, learn. I would drive all over the DC area and just do stuff for free. And that's like something I tell, kids that are like interning that have come to intern for me. And, I'm like, look, like, you're not the only one out there that's, working for free. Like, I know it doesn't sound right, but, there are plenty of college strength coaches that are doing the exact same thing you're doing. Yeah, this is, for your undergrad, and they're doing it more for like, positioning themselves for later on. But it's, it's relatable in the sense that, like, do you really want to do this is the question. Like, some of these kids just,
100%, you'll find out really fast,
yeah,
find out really fast if you want to do it or not. If you're eating ramen noodles every night and ramen noodles are fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but once in a while, you'd like to eat a steak once in a while. Right. Yeah. So you'll find out real quick if it's something you really, really want to do. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So once you got through that GA position, I was kind of looking at your sort of your resume.
Right.
Looked like you were going back and forth, over the past few years of college and high school. And I know now you're in the high school realm. Were you just doing that because of just the opportunities, or? No,
not really. I mean, college realm, like I said earlier, like you always run into some hiccups, right? So like, first collegiate job, out of everything was at Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida. That was my first collegiate job after I finished my graduate degree. And I kind of moved on positions after that because it was like I wanted to move up to the next level, right? So I kind of left that position to get a better paying position. And the higher up you go, the more is at stake, right? Like you have to win. The coaches you work with may dictate some things that you do. Communication's key. Like at the end of the day, X's and O's and money pretty much rule everything. So if you're not winning games, if the coach gets fired and you're associated with that coach, obviously, it's time to clean house sometimes if a new coach comes in, right? So, so I went to Jacksonville University, had a great career there, loved it there. It was really hard to leave. But I got a great opportunity at Youngstown State. Being from Youngstown, I love Youngstown, Ohio. Some people think I'm crazy because there's not much there anymore. It's considered the Rust Belt or whatnot, but it fits my mentality, right? Like it fits who I am, and I love that place. So I went back to Youngstown State. They have a strong tradition as far as winning football games, especially during the mid '90s and late '90s. I got hooked up with a coach that was fantastic. He's now the defense coordinator at Iowa State, John Haycock. And during my time there, we had a coaching transition. Coach Haycock was relieved of his duties, and a new coach came in, and I pretty much, I was told, hey, you have pretty much a year to stick this out and see if it's something that you guys get along, right? And at the end of the day, it just wasn't something that I'm not saying we didn't get along, but he wanted to bring his own guy in, and I totally understood that. And that was something from that period forward, I had to find a position. That at that point in time, you're leaving your hometown and you're living in your hometown, you have family there, whatnot. And you're like, hey, like I can stay here. I'm comfortable here. I can get a different job doing something else. Or do I want to pursue do I really love coaching? Right. And from that point forward, it kind of, there's a month or two, I was just lost. I didn't know what to do. I had opportunities to stay in town, and I'm just like, that fire got lit a little bit, and I was like, hey, I need to get back to coaching, right? No matter where I need to go, I need to leave this place, and I need to get back in the swing of things. So, obviously I found another position. It was something special. And then from there, something happened again, right? So it's just a matter of, it's more situational. You have to be reactive. You have to have a backup plan. When my first job that was in high school, was in Jacksonville, Florida, and we were actually contracted through. I actually worked for a private sector facility, but we were contracted out through them. So we found different high schools to go work at and work private sectors. So that's where I first came in contact with, working the high school level. And it was just a matter of, is this something I want to do? Do I want to get back into college? Kind of like that sort of thing. So some of them have been for, from a better quality of life, right? And sometimes you just leave positions because things don't work out appropriately. Whether it's something that I did or whether it's something that a coach got fired, those things happen, right? So it is what it is. And you just have to have a backup plan. You'll hear that all the time, right? Like, if especially in a private facility, right? If you want to train athletes, the athletes aren't the only people that you have to go after. You also have to go after their parents because they're the ones with the money, right? So you have to consistently try to adapt that. And I think working in those different levels, right, not just being in collegiate, kind of got me thinking a little bit from a marketing perspective for how to approach people, how to speak to people, right? So working in the private sector, I think you really get to work on your marketing skills and how you sell yourself, how people perceive you, and you really get to question what your philosophy is, because at that point in time, that's what is really going to bring people in the door. The collegiate level, coaches are bringing people to you to train, so your philosophy doesn't really matter. But when your paychecks pretty much derive on you getting people in the door and retaining them for a period of time, now all of a sudden, you're understanding a little bit more what really clicks with the general population as far as training goes. And a lot of times in the private sector, you may only see a kid for 3 months, even 2 months, and then he goes on to do something else. And hopefully he comes back after that season's over and you train him again. So it's always, where college you're kind of training for the long term, that private sector you're more short term, right? Yeah. And they do look, private sector, it's kind of off topic right now, but that private sector really has opened my eyes to, okay, hey, what's the trends in training, right? Like, obviously you can be more sports specific, whether you're doing soccer training or baseball training or whatever. Is it something that you're more of a functional person? Are you doing more explosive aspects? Are you doing more on the field work? Are you using technology to draw people in? You have to have something that it's your go-to, right? But that's something that, a lot of people will look at, just like you did, a lot of people will look at the resume and be like, oh, this guy went from here to here, this and that. That might be a negative thing. Sometimes people just can't do anything about that, right? It may be something that their spouse gets a better job and they have to move with their spouse and leave a really good position. All those things happen. But all those kind of experiences are they can be. I think they're more strengths than anything else.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I wasn't looking at it as at a negative. No. I was looking more as like I was just curious if there was a reason. I mean, I understand the landscape of the strength conditioning, the field, how it works. I was just wondering if it was more because of you just, loved coaching the college. I kind of still like coaching kids.
I'm always gonna have a passion for college athletics, right? Like that's where I've spent my longest period of time. Yeah. I think I fit in well there. And I think some people, like, I'm a very sarcastic individual. So some coaches don't get that sometimes, right? So sometimes it rubs people the wrong way. And once you rub a person the wrong way a little bit, sometimes it doesn't go over very well, right? So, and I think I'm very everything I do is, I don't want to say it's high quality, but I demand a lot out of people, right? Like if you're supposed to be on time, you're going to be on time, right? Mm-hmm. There's no way about it, Like if we're doing a certain lift, it needs to be perfect, right? There's not like, if you look on social media, like things that I post, like I don't post a lot of things that are technically flawed. Just because I don't want people to get a bad impression that I'm just letting something fly and it looks like garbage, right? Like I want things, if we're doing something, we're doing it perfect as best that we possibly can, So, and that sometimes people don't like that, So it's just a matter of, I think, and some of the transitions I made were positive, like I said, and some just because I wanted to stay in coaching, I had to stay in there, right? Yeah. Like it is what it is. I mean. Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of people say, oh, you're not really a coach till you get fired or whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I don't really think that's true. But I think to have, to chase different experiences and to try to make yourself better, or maybe your quality of life better, I think that's an important aspect too. And then once you finally hit that, that sweet spot of where you think, hey, high school is better, collegiate's better, or just helping people in general, then you can pretty much make that transition and be happy, you know?
Yeah. So kind of transitioning from, about, your journey.
Yeah.
I always ask this question to strength coaches that have gone into the college sector. Like when you, I'm not sure exactly what sport, I don't know exactly what sports you have trained. I'm sure you've probably trained all the sports at some point.
Right.
What is like something that most kids from college come in that they're lacking, that is not allowing them to maybe play at their best in the college sport? Or, you as the strength coach are like, look, man, it doesn't look like you ever stepped in a weight room before. Like, we got to start at ground zero, basically.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of individuals, especially high school level, that are coming up to college, right? Like, besides football, a lot of sports teams have never been in the weight room before, right? They don't think it's something that is necessary for them to be successful, right? So they've made it through high school, or maybe they've made it on their travel team or club team, and they've been successful skill wise from a tactical standpoint, but from the aspect as far as training, they just don't feel weight training is. They're like, it's not that important to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you get in collegiate, and as you get in more competitive realms, just like you said earlier, I think everything comes into play, right? Like from a recovery process, from nutrition process, from a mentality process or psychological process, from a strength conditioning, sports performance process. All those things are all encompassing. To be a great high school player, do you have to lift weights? No, you probably really don't. Depending on what level of high school you're at. To be a great collegiate player, do you have to lift weights? It depends on how good your skill set really is. But just that mentality of being open-minded and going, hey, I'm going to give my full effort to getting better in this specific area as far as weight training. I think that's something that a lot of kids are kind of standoffish just because they don't understand it, right? Mm-hmm. Like if it's something new, if I have to weight train for the first time and I'm a soccer player and I'm coming in fall camp and I've never trained a weight before and I have to prove myself to my coach, and the first time I lift weights, I'm pretty sore and it's affecting my fall play that I may not start. I moved down to second or third string on the depth chart when I think I'm the best player out there. I'm going to all of a sudden go, hey, this is really affecting me. I don't want to give my full effort to that because I don't want to be sore again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to play soccer. So that's something where, that strength coach needs to understand, hey, we have these individuals. It's something, how are we going to train these individuals correctly so it's not affecting their play? It's also from a sport coach standpoint, is the sport coach going to slowly evolve them into camp rather than the first day do a fitness test, right? Because that's what usually happens. You do a fitness test, half the team's injured, half the team's sore, and then all of a sudden you have to decrease your volume for the second week because everybody's injured, and then the third week we kind of have to build it back up again, and then by the time we're playing competition, we're not at full strength. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one thing, just that open-mindedness. Another thing is just being open to different exercises, not to be married to certain exercises, but be married to movements, right? So, I think that really hounds with if you're a football player, like American football, the Olympic lifts are huge in American football, right? The clean, the snatch, and other lifts too, in other sports. But, not to be married to those lifts. If I'm working on, if I want to get the same movement as a clean, but I have a freshman football player, and instead of me going from square one with the bar and trying to teach that Olympic lift for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I expect him to play right away, I would much rather him get the full benefits of, jumping, sprinting, throwing, still getting some type of power output work without totally just detraining him from the Olympic lift wise. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's from, just learning those technical aspects. So, and I've been in, early on in my career, I was a huge Olympic lift component. I was like, we have to Olympic lift. I don't care what sport you are. And that's just the upbringing I had, when I was at UTEP, University of Texas, El Paso. My mentor is a huge Olympic lifter. And, we Olympic lifted everybody. So it was, and that's when I got in my first head job. I was like, well, this is the way, this is what we're supposed to do. So everybody Olympic lifted. We started with the bar, we built up, and looking back on it, eventually I'm like, that's not the way to do it. Like, we need to evolve. Some of these lifts aren't great. If we need to do variations, we can do variations, but not everybody needs to do full cleans or full snatches, and some people aren't capable of doing that, right? So it's just a matter from that standpoint, as far as, just being open-minded, and then from there, just being coachable too, not being set in stone. If I have a football player and he's like, well, I love cleans, I need to clean this amount of weight to be an effective football player. We know that's not necessarily true, right? Like, it's just a matter of, I think that comes around with some coaches also. I had a coach at one point in time that said, I need every football player to clean over 300 pounds. All right, well, even this, 150-pound wide receiver, yeah, everybody needs to clean over 300 pounds. And it just doesn't work out that way, right? Like, if he's only cleaning 225 or 230, to get him up to 300 pounds in 6 weeks probably isn't going to happen, but right. So, but coaches don't want to hear that, right? So it's just a matter of doing your due diligence and trying to fight through everything and really trying to make everybody happy. That's the biggest thing. So those are my kind of things. I mean, just making sure athletes, take the weight room serious, understand the reasonings of why they're weight training. It's more of a durability issue than anything else. Then, durability first, as far as not missing games, and then from a performance aspect, and then from there, now you can feed over to an aspect of leadership, individuality, as far as who needs specific training programs specific to their need, and then moving on from there. So and kids have evolved. I mean, the way you approach kids and talk to kids are different nowadays. Like 15 years ago, it was more of a militant style. Like, hey, you have to do this. This is the way we're doing things. We're not changing anything. It's okay. Hey, does this work for you? Okay, you have pain here, or you don't think that's good for you. Well, here's a couple other options. Let's try this, this, and this. So now the kids are really highly intelligent. Like, with social media, YouTube, they're finding out these training means or how they should be trained. So now they can actually talk the talk a little bit on some. And even some schools have exercise phys classes or exercise science classes. The school I'm at now, we're in the process of putting exercise phys and exercise science classes in our curriculum. So now we're going to have these kids speaking the same language, right? So now it's like, okay, we need to get on the same page of what's most beneficial for these kids, because pretty soon, we're going to be doing conditioning drills, and they're going to be like, hey, coach, is this, I'm a baseball player. This drill isn't specific to my needs. You know what I'm saying? So now you have to have that deliberate talk with them and go from there. Because kids are smart. They're really highly intelligent. So, those are kind of some of the little things. You just need to be on your toes on some of those things, so.
What, what area of obviously every kid is different. So if there was one area that you think, most kids need to work on more, as far as the weight room, is it their overall strength? Is it mobility issues? Is it that you've noticed since you come across a lot of high school, you've come across a lot of college kids. I'm sure, some kids have touched the weight room before, but most probably haven't. Is there a area that you find that if you could tell all parents and of high school kids, hey, if this is an area that I believe that if you worked on this for your sport, it could really benefit you. I think, as you said, durability and stuff like that.
And I think the top three have nothing to do with physical attributes whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So effort, attitude, and the ability to take criticism. I think those are the top three right off the bat. Knowing how to finish drills, knowing how to show up on time, knowing how to ask questions, those are things that are on top of the board. Especially with kids that I deal with now, even kids, and I think that really comes from the top as far as the coaches go. Even at the collegiate level, I worked with some really, the last volleyball coach I worked with at UNC Charlotte. She has her family has a military background, so she wasn't militant, but she demanded a lot, right? And she laid down the X's and O's right away. And, there was consequences if people didn't do certain things, right? So the biggest thing is finding the right person. And a lot of people, a lot of college coaches are going to go after this great player that can play the sport really, really well, but they may not fit their coaching style that the coach actually has, right? And then all of a sudden you have conflicts. All of a sudden, even though that person's the best athlete on the court at one time, they're slipping through the cracks in other areas. And then players are seeing that, and then those players slip through those cracks also, and then you have a negative team culture, right? So I think it's really knowing how to recruit people that have the same demeanor or same attitude that you have, that they're coachable, right? But then also holding them to a high standard. So that's it. And the coach I worked with, the volleyball coach, one thing they look for recruiting wise is that other people in their family were athletes at one time. So either the parents were athletes or the siblings played collegiate athletics. So all of a sudden, everybody knew what the standards were for that level. It just wasn't some newbie that both parents never played athletics or didn't know, if somebody in the family played athletics at a higher level, right? So now all of a sudden they understand the culture, the nature of the beast, and what is the standard for those things. Those are the big things from a high school standpoint, as far as effort, attitude, and be able to understand, criticism or whatnot. From a physicality standpoint, I think the biggest thing is just movement quality and understand how to move correctly, and holding that to a higher standard, so that when weight is applied to it, structurally just not break it down, right? Yeah. So I think that's huge. I think, can a lot of problems be fixed with athletes getting stronger? 100%. But is the necessity to get stronger, is it really that necessary to progress in strength that quickly, right? For certain sports, it's not. The average freshman football player, from the beginning of their freshman year to the end of their freshman year, gain 20 to 25 pounds of body mass, right? It has nothing to do with weight training whatsoever. It just happens to be that they're going through puberty and they're growing and they're going to put on some weight, right? So if they're putting that weight on, and plus we're doing weight training on top of it, well, now they're adding 25 pounds of body weight through that whole year, but now we're putting another external load on top of it. So now it could be something that it could lead to overstress of certain joints. It could lead to tendon issues, stuff like that. So if you hear about the Block Zero program, Joe Ken's done a great job, designing this Block Zero program 20 some years ago. So the big thing, if we can go through movement quality perspective, whether it's isometrics, whether it's, what qualities you feel are important to your athletes, if you can do that for maybe the first semester of their freshman year totally, and they're able to move well, then we can go the more efficient way and try to load those joints from there on out. Because if I'm gaining an extra 20 pounds just from my natural maturation process, there's no reason for me to put an external load, an aggressive external load on top of it, right? And if we're going to a high school setting, coaches want to see, hey, what's so-and-so squat, what's so-and-so bench. I even have, our athletic director asked me, hey, what is our seventh grade, what's their deadlift max? Well, coach, we don't deadlift max them. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not going to deadlift max them, like they need to grow into their aspects. They need to understand movement qualities, how to move. I'd much rather those lower end kids know how to move correctly as far as with body weight, or know how to understand do a push up or a pull up. And then we're working on more mechanic aspects as far as running goes, right? Because I think the more they can move in athletic positions, the better they're going to be at sport. And then we can make them, once they get older, now we can add a little bit of weight in there and add some external load and make them a little bit more durable over time, right? I think that's a huge aspect is athletes they just don't know how to move correctly, or they're very robotic. And I think competition is huge too. So, at the high school level, there are some academies or some high schools that, especially at the middle school level, they separate gender. So they may have all female classes, all male classes. And I think, we all know at the middle school level, some females are more mature or able to move a little bit more efficiently. So they may, in some aspects, they may beat boys in some races, right? They're moving better, they're higher quality movers. So I think having those genders and mixing genders at a lower level, whether it's elementary or sixth grade or seventh grade or eighth grade, it may make male athletes move a little bit better also and be more competitive. Because obviously when genders come into play, no boy wants to lose to a girl, no girl wants to lose to a boy. and now all of a sudden we have things that are a little bit more competitive, right? So, I think those are the biggest things. Effort, attitude, able to be coachable. Receive criticism well and want to adapt to it. But then from a physicality standpoint, the ability to move a little bit more efficiently, and obviously competition is huge too. Trying to make things more competitive, and because that makes it fun at the end of the day. Kids are going to remember it. They're going to, hey, if Billy beat me on a sprint last week, I know I need to prepare, and we can kind of hold that in our brain a little bit while they're doing drills and go, hey, the next day, hey, hey, Billy beat you, man. What are you going to do today? Like build that fire a little bit, and that'll make them more competitive, not only in athletic setting, but they're not going to like to fail in life either. And that's the biggest thing is I think we give up too easy on a lot of areas too. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I think that that totally makes sense because I look at it from a different angle, not just from the strength training aspect. I look at it from the angle of kids that when they are on a team and it gets tough and they might not be getting a lot of playing time and it's a little bit easier for them to quit and go to another team where they might be, they might shine a little bit more. And I always try to elaborate on some of the things that you just mentioned here. I'm like, look, man, like it ain't going to be easy when you get, if you play college, if you play at the next level, like you're not going to be able to quit on the spot and say, oh, like, it doesn't work like that. So, yeah, I think that those definitely are good, are things that a lot of kids should really, really, think about. Because it could change their sort of view on different areas of their even their life just in general. Like,
I think it's a big thing. I mean, I think we really have to be, and I think this just struck me probably the last 10 years or so, but we're really conductors of what these kids are doing in the real world. You know what I'm saying? Like once they're done playing sports or once they're done doing how they're being coached is I mean, that may be the only kind of guidance or really learning experience they've ever been approached with, right? Like their parents may not be around. They may be a single parent family. Mm-hmm. When they're in our view or under our hands, our guidance is key. And the more they see, if the only person they see instructing people is that coach, eventually they're going to mimic kind of their qualities, right? Yeah. I always that's a huge thing is and that's something one of my coaches told me. They're like, hey, we understand your personality, and that's fantastic, but we want our guys to have similar like traits, So all of a sudden now they're around you so often. You hear it all the time, like you take on the traits of the 3 or the 5 people that you're around the most, right? So that's why coaching staffs have to be so synergistic and have the same message and really be you can't really be fake, right? Because if you're continuously being fake throughout the day, whether you're a hype guy or whether it's something like that, then at the end of the day, you're going to be totally exhausted because you're putting on this facade, right? So that's why these coaching staffs have to be so synergistic because you're really about molding those individuals to your quality of what you want. And then once they're done playing for you, they're still going to have those qualities inside of them because that's all they've been around for that time period. Whether it's, I don't care what level you're at, whether it's high school, whether it's private sector, whether it's tactical, whether it's college, whether it's pro. I mean, it is what it is. Like, you just have to be a good person, and you have to have good qualities and preach those qualities all the time, so people can relate and understand what they really mean. Because that's the biggest thing is you talk to somebody and they come back and go, hey, I know why, we ran sprints. I know the reason now why we started behind the line or why we did this drill or why I need to be on time, I understand that stuff now. Hey, thanks. And you're like, hey, that's at the time you didn't understand, but now you do. That's what it's all about. Right. Like that's huge. And I think that's, I think that's big on the private sector too, just because, I mean, someone's paying you to train them. Right. And they want results and sometimes their skill set isn't very good, but you're trying to improve them. And just like you said earlier, I think you made a good point is like, when it starts getting tough, you just can't quit. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, hey, play it for a year. If you don't like it after the year, okay, I understand, but you can't just quit in the middle of it and just go on because especially if your college education is riding on it, you have a scholarship and you're supposed to be there for 4 or 5 years. And after 2 years, you just don't like it. And then all of a sudden you quit. And now you don't have the funds to pay for college, or you get deeper student loans. Now with the transfer portal, it's easy to transfer to other schools now. That's a whole nother, realm of things. But, you just can't give up on things and keep on giving up. I mean, that's just a poor way to live life. I think you bring up a lot of good points. So.
Yeah, exactly. And, that kind of stuff just kind of like happens. Like if you do it when you're younger, those habits tend to creep up and happen again as things go on, after college, and those habits come up again. So with the place that you're in now, are you just like the sports performance coach? Like what kind of role do you play?
It's a little different than what I'm used to, but it's exciting, right? So myself and another individual were both brought on to be, sports performance coaches. They created a new department called human performance. We're under, physical education. So it's 2 different departments. So we don't train. We have opportunity to. We could train people before school or after school if we can, if it's in their schedule. But we have classes throughout the day. So we have 7 periods a day. We train, kids 4 days a week. So Monday and Friday, our schedule is 7 periods, and then 50-minute classes. And then Tuesday through Thursday, we have a rotating block, which is a 70-minute class. So we see everybody 4 days a week. So it's considered elective. So kids sign up like they would regular classes. They don't all have to be athletes. They can be just general population. So within one class period, our classes are roughly anywhere from maybe 9 kids to 25 kids. It just depends the time of the day that fits in, and if they can fit in around AP classes and stuff like that. So our biggest thing is at one time we may have 6 programs going at one time in a room, right? So we don't really break things up by sport. Just so the fact a lot of our athletes, and it's high school athletes, so a lot of their training ages are very, very low. Yeah. So we kind of break it up. We go through an assessment process. We break it up as far as novice and intermediate. And then as we progress, we'll add stages onto that intermediate or novice program. So right now we just got here in last June, July. So it's a brand new program. So like right now we have a novice 1, novice 2. And then we have, an intermediate 1, intermediate 2, just for our general population, other students. And then our football is kind of more specific. And we break it up into like football novice and football intermediate, if that makes sense. So at one time, we can't really, with our schedule, we really can't say, hey, this is we're taking all the football athletes and put them in one group. We just can't do it just because we have such it's a very small high school or academy. So we don't have that many options as far as classes go. So if a kid needs a certain history class, he needs to take it at a certain time. We don't have other options. You know what I'm saying? So it works out really, really well. We don't train a lot of athletes after school, just for the fact that roughly about 65% to 70% of our whole student body play multiple sports. So like we have a football player that plays 4 sports, plays football, and then football in the fall, and then in the spring he played soccer, tennis, track and field. Right. So, and I think we did some data and did some numbers. So in the fall, I think we had 75% of our whole high school population played a sport. And in the spring, I think 83% of our whole student population played a sport. So a lot of people play sports. A lot of them are active, and a lot of them play multiple sports. So the only time we could really train is during class. So we train on game days. That was something that was new this year, is that they didn't in last year, in the years past, they never really had this position before. It's kind of the football coach, doing the weight training program pretty much just for football. So now we're kind of implementing it slowly and moving on from there. The biggest thing that has really been, not necessarily pushback, but different, is obviously game day lifts, trying to get kids to understand that it's important to do a game day lift, whether it's a neural primer or something to get them generated. Not only is it going to help them athletically, performance-wise, but also cognitively, as far as wake them up a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Another thing that we've dealt with is co-ed situations. So all our classes are co-ed. So we have male and female in the classes themselves. We haven't really had any issues at all. But we have developed a female only class that a female instructor teaches just for individuals that don't want their kids intermingled or whatnot. The females will take other classes from there. And then nutrition has been big, right? Like that's been a huge emphasis. I think it's a huge emphasis as far as recovery and nutrition, just educating athletes, eating breakfast, getting up, eating things. We do have a break period where they'll go through first period, and then we have about a 30-minute window that they can go to the cafeteria or whatnot. So they can bring like a little snack and they can eat, and then they can go through the rest of the day. So we do have like a little break period or whatnot. But our biggest thing is they're eating high quality foods, right? So we do have a dining service that we don't control. It's an outside dining service. And obviously a lot of kids don't want to stand in line to get the meals that are provided. So they always like to go by the register, and the register has, they have cookies and stuff like that right near the register. Really, great marketing tool for them. But so we have to kind of educate them, hey, take the extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes, stand in line, actually get something, that's actually somewhat nutritious for you, or bring something from home. So that's just been an educational process. So this is something that has been, and we have the possibility of designing new classes. So right now we have it's called, competitive weight training is our class, or competitive sports performance. We do have the option to, do other classes. So if it's something we want to have a classroom setting that we want to go and teach exercise phys, we could do that. If it's something that we want to just do, like a nutrition class, we could do something like that. Our biggest focus right now is actually getting this athletic performance class pretty much dialed in, and then seeing what's needed from there, right? So, I was just promoted the department chair over PE and human performance just recently. So right now I'm seeing a little bit different side as far as how kids are registering for classes. What are the classes being offered? More of the academia side rather than just the coaching perspective. And then also, administration, budgetary things as far as controlling budget, how to control those things, what's important from our staff perspective, and then getting all our staff on the same page. So our K through 12 is all on one campus. So we do see some middle school kids that come and see us and weight train in the morning throughout the day, not just in the morning. So we have roughly, between 7th and 8th grade, we have like I said, it's a very small school, but we have roughly about 40 kids that come to see us from the middle school. So that's kind of like our developmental aspect. Some people would do block 0 or whatnot. So we're just trying to get them. We do have some females too that they don't want to do the female class. They want to jump in with some of the middle school boys, which we think is fantastic. But it's just a matter of getting them all on the same page and facility wise. So we want to fill up our facility as much as possible, use that facility, make sure we show people that it's getting used, just because that's an important aspect. Our new headmaster, he's former military, but he used to be a PE teacher himself. So he finds PE very, very important. So it's just a matter of speaking with him and really, we have some good backing behind us as far as really developing this, right? So it's an exciting time. Our facility is a great facility. We can't really complain about it. It's about 4,000 square foot. We have 10 half racks. It's right behind us is the football field. So we can use that if we need to for anything. So it's just a matter of, if we have 50 minutes on Monday and Friday, what's the most important things we can do in that family? We really don't have 50 minutes, right? Because the time the kids come in and change, the times they, if they need to shower afterwards or something like that, you more likely have maybe 35 minutes really to 40 minutes. So what's the most important thing we do in that 40 minutes? Now on the other days, 70 minutes, okay, you have roughly, 55 minutes. Okay, what's the most important thing we can do in 55 minutes? So we train total body every day. So, we have an emphasis lift as far as what we do. And then from there, we deliberately, have a total body. That way, if we need to modify some things, we know that we have a track meet today and we don't want to train, lower body excessively, we can take some stuff out and plug it in and it goes pretty smooth. So, but as long as we're hitting that main lift, it's pretty good. We use Team Builder. So we use Team Builder to track our main lifts. And then our accessory stuff has worked out pretty well. We do track some accessories, but really the kids are they can pick what they need to. We kind of do a bucket system, and which at first, we kind of did everything in phases, meaning we did our A1, A2 first, B1, B2, and we kind of went down. We may have a superset, we may have a tri-set, and we just found out that there's just a lot of lackadaisical. No one's really going through it, right? Like it was just kind of like, okay, I'll get to it when I get to it. Well, we kind of put them on a clock system now, so now everything's timed out, and it's worked really, really well. So we have a timing system that we go through, and they need to get done. If we're doing our main lift warm up, they got 6 minutes, so they're going to get their main lift warm up. They're going to do some prehab movements for that day. We'll go through our main movement. Our main movement may be anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes, depending on how you set the reps and the rest ratio. And we'll set the timer so that every time the timer goes off, the first person's up. So we'll do it on, whether it's every 90 seconds or every 2 minutes, depending on the qualities that we're looking for the day. And then we go through our buckets. So our buckets will just be whether it's a push-pull, whether it's agonist and antagonist, whether it's a pre-exhaust. There may be some manual resistance exercises in there, but it just depends on what we're looking for the qualities we're training today, whether it's repeat effort, working on hypertrophy, whether it's more plyometric or dynamic effort work. We have this block, and then we'll set a time period. So we may have, if we're working for more plyometric movements, then we may have, 3 movements on there. It may be, maybe a plyometric push-up or a push-up, with a band across, with a band to get our hands off the ground, like a plyo push-up. It may be some type of squat jump. And then it may be something where maybe we do a sprint or something like that. We'll put them on the clock and go, hey, you have 3 exercises. We need to try to get through, 4 sets of each of these in 10 minutes. Right. So then they roll through that. They're, and they go through that as a team. So one person's doing one person's doing the other, and they just rotate through, and they understand that, hey, this is something we need to get done in that time period. There may be other days that working on muscle density or some type of hypertrophy work. And we may pick 5 exercises and go, hey, we're trying to get through this as many sets as we can in 20 minutes. So you might have, pull up, you might have dumbbell bench press, you might have dumbbell split squat, and then like Nordic curls, and maybe like a front plank. And then timer's going, and they understand the sets and reps and what weights they're using, and they're just going through muscle density, and they're just trying to build that capacity, right? So it just depends on what we're doing and what qualities we have from there. So it's worked out really, really well.
Awesome.
And kids are challenging each other. If they're on rack 1, they're going, hey, I got through 5 sets, and rack 3 is like, well, I only got through 4. Now they're trying to keep each other accountable from that perspective, which makes it fun then, right? So it's been really good. It's been a learning experience because in college you're like, you have this certain time period. Everybody has to do what's going on. You kind of control the room a little bit, and the thing is college kids don't have a choice, right? Like they're there, they have to go to practice. It's more militant style. Where high school, if kids don't like your class, they could not bring their clothes. They could go, to the tutor and do so. They could find other means to not participate in your class, right? Even though it deducts their grade, a lot of kids don't care if they get a B. If they get a B and it's 89, or they get a B and it's 80%, they could care either way. You know what I'm saying? So as long as they get a B, they're happy. So our big thing is really try to cut back on workouts missed. So if it's senior skip day and we have seniors showing up, then we know we're doing something right. You know what I'm saying? So that's been a positive thing right now. I mean, it's a learning experience, and just like every college is different, every high school is different too. Every situation is different. So you just need to find what kind of kid you're dealing with and try to structure that the best you can, right? So
let me ask you this. So with these kids, since it's kind of similar to the private sector where you kind of have to get them to buy in.
100%.
Like what's the conversation of like, hey, this is going to be really, even playing a sport or not, a kid that's, that might not be playing a sport, but still participates.
Right.
But what are you saying to these kids as far as like, the benefits to what we're doing here?
Right. I think whether a kid is around the weight room or plays a sport, I think everybody knows the benefits of some type of physical activity, whether it's cognitive or whether it's physical, right? It's a benefit no matter what. So we kind of explain to them, especially after COVID, that this is a stress relief, right? This is the way that we can relieve ourselves mentally, especially if you're in a high academic school. We're a college preparatory school. Academics are very high. We even have some individuals that take college courses halfway through the day. They go to UGA or go to Emory and take college courses, then come back and finish up regular high school courses, right? It just depends if they get in and stuff. So we have individuals that are like that level, right? So we do have some individuals that that want. We have two swimmers that are Olympic hopefuls. They want to swim in the Olympics. One just got a scholarship to UGA. He does really good time. So we're dealing with individuals that are kind of on the high end. Some of them, right? Yeah. As far as stress, right? Especially at a low age level. So we kind of explain that situation as far as a stress relief aspect. I think all of them understand the physicality, how they want to look, right? So like, males, hey, I want to get stronger. I want to play and I want to do sports better. I physically want to look different aesthetically. We can all relate to males easily, right? Female standpoint is a little bit different, So from a female standpoint, I think it's really communicating with them on what they need. So the first thing we did when we got there, we gave them a sheet and said, hey, what are your goals from this class? What do you want to do? What do you want to be educated on? We kind of got their perspective as far as, instead of us going, hey, this is what you're going to learn, right? We kind of got all the information from them and said, what do you want to learn? And we're going to teach you about that, right? So if a person comes in and goes, well, I want to learn more about nutrition, or I want to learn more about how I can be good at my sport, or I want to learn, how I can, how I can help, X, Y, and Z. We're going to help it out, right? So I want to know how to squat. Okay, so we're going to teach these things, right? So we get their perspective, and then from there we go, okay, how do you want to be coached? Do you want to be someone that, we're on you 24/7, pushing you, or do you want to be someone that, you kind of want to be left alone and go through what you want to do? Do you want to be kicked in the butt, or do you want to be loved up? Which one do you want to be? You know what I'm saying? And that way you can kind of get a feel, okay, what are the personalities in the group? Yeah. Right? Because I think that's the most off-putting thing is all of a sudden you come in a new situation, and this goes with both sides, college, pro, whatever. The worst thing you can do is come to a situation and all of a sudden you're just on people, right? And then all of a sudden the person's like, hey, this guy is, this guy's a piece of shit. He doesn't know who I am. He doesn't care what I'm about. He's coming at me. I don't like this guy. So the best thing you do is that first impression is highly important. So you just come in and go, hey, this is what we're going to learn. You get that information. Now, you have that template. Okay, this is what we're going to do, So we came in, got that goal setting. We sat down. We said, all right, now how do we attack this? So some people are there for athletic performance. Some people are there just for aesthetics. Some people can't move well. We did an assessment. Like we did a pretty much FMS assessment. And I'm not saying like the FMS is like the godsend of assessments. There's a lot of flaws to it. Yeah. Whether you're adolescent or whether you're geriatric or whatever, like there's some flaws, right? But it gave them the perspective. Okay, this person needs to move better in this area. This person maybe have poor ankle mobility. This person may have poor shoulder mobility. And we kind of took all these imbalances and these problems, and we laid out, okay, this may be the direction we want to go for corrective exercises, right? So, okay, this looks good. What do kids do all day in class? Well, they sit the whole time. If they're on a computer, because every kid has a computer, their shoulders are rounded over, their eyes are looking down. There's some postural things that we need to correct. What's the next thing we need to emphasize on? We went from the FMS. Obviously, core stability is a huge aspect. The ability to hinge was a huge aspect. Hamstring, lack of hamstring strength, length of hamstring flexibility, lack of ankle mobility, lack of hip mobility, female-wise and male-wise, lack of upper body strength, push and pull. So all of a sudden we have this big smorgasbord of just things that we need to correct, right? Okay, we understand that it's going to be easier to get these kids strong, and some of these things will correct themselves. Perfect. Yeah. What about this kid that has no business learning how to front squat or learning how to back squat? Okay. Is he taking this class just for one semester? Or is this year long? Because I'm not going to teach this kid how to do X, Y, and Z lift if he's here for one semester, and then I'm not going to see him for, maybe he's a senior and he's on his way out the door. You know what I'm saying? So we go in and go, okay, what's our progression regression? All right, we're going to learn we're going to do an ISO squat, ISO bodyweight squat. Then we're going to do, we don't have enough dumbbells, so we can't goblet squat everybody. So we're going to do a landmine anterior load like squat, right? So we're just going to mimic the landmine being a goblet squat. We'll load it on the barbell. That's our next movement. And then from there, we go to goblet squat, if the person can do goblet squat. And then we go to front squat, and then we'll go to back squat. And that's our five exercise progression. We might throw Zercher in there from a transition from our landmined anterior load squat to front squat, but only if it's really needed, right? So a lot of our novice individuals that don't play athletics, they'll get to a goblet squat and they don't want to learn a front squat. They're happy doing a goblet squat. We may do some different goblet variations with them, but we'll never have to load a barbell on their back or anterior load it on the shoulders, and they're perfectly okay with it, right? A lot of our novice, instead of trap bar deadlifting, we will do hip thrust with them, right? So we'll do hip thrust off the floor, which is we could load it very, very heavy because they don't have to put their shoulders on the bench. If we want to get more range of motion, then we'll put their shoulders on the bench, whether a barbell on their hips or a dumbbell on their hips. And then from there, we may do just a dumbbell or kettlebell deadlift as another variation, right? So that might be all they move from a novice standpoint for deadlift. For bench press, they're doing push-ups. They're doing whether it's chest elevated, right, or whether it's an eccentric movement, just to learn on movement like motor patterning as far as how to actually do a push-up. And then from there, if they can do it off a bench, chest elevated, they'll put a band across the safety rails, and then they'll lay on the band to do push-ups off the floor correctly, right? Taking the body weight off of their body, and then we'll progress them to a regular push-up, eccentric, so they learn how to control it and keep their core stable. And then we'll go to regular push-up. Once they can complete so many push-ups on their own, then they'll go to dumbbell bench. Once they can do dumbbell bench, a certain weight of their body weight for so many repetitions, then we'll progress them to barbell bench, and then we'll have bench variations. Is that, you know what I'm saying? So we kind of have, our novice kind of has like a graduation rate. So like our big graduating rates for our novice group is obviously the ability to do push-ups, the ability to actually, do some type of goblet squat. And then from there, we load them and we'll test, they have to do 10 reps, a certain percentage of their body weight for their anterior loaded landmine squat. And then a certain amount of, a percentage of their body weight on dumbbell bench for a certain amount of reps and on lat pull down. Now, if they can do chin ups, that's fantastic, but that's most, if you get a freshman or a sophomore and they can't do, they're usually a little bit awkward sometimes as far as their growth spurts. So it's better to do a little bit more like a chin up lat pull down. I don't do any banded lat pull down or pull ups or anything like that. We may do some eccentric, but I'm not putting a band on somebody and having the band do a lot of the work for them, right? So I'll get them stronger on the lat pull down movement, and then we'll work on eccentric as far as the chin up, and then we'll progress them to maybe jumping up to the bar and trying to pull themselves up and then lowering down slow from that perspective as far as the pull up goes. Then we'll do RDL for a certain amount of body weight for repetitions. And I think that is the biggest thing. And if everything looks good, then we may progress them to bench press. Then we'll progress them to trap bar deadlift. We'll progress them to front squat, and then they move into intermediate load, and we'll go from there. Now, one thing we're going to do in the future is we're going to test individuals on their coaching cues. And if they can actually coach one of their peers on a certain lift, like know the coaching cues, know foot position, put everything together, then that's going to be an emphasis for the next class coming in as far as those kind of things. So we're actually going to make sure they understand our coaching cues because we give a lot of 1 word or 2 word coaching cues. If we're front squatting, we'll work from the top down, or work from like the bottom up, right? We'll say feet, we'll say hips, we'll say elbows, we'll say eyes. Those are our big coaching cues, and we go over those so much that kids, okay, hey, elbows, eyes, they understand what all that stuff means. You know what I'm saying? So we'll come in and go, hey, today, Susie, you're going to coach Jimmy on the front squat in front of everybody right now. Go. And then we'll take you have 5 minutes, and they'll go through 5 minutes, give the coaching cues, educate people how to do that. And now all of a sudden that works on public speaking, that works on leadership, that works on communication skills, that works on peer-to-peer criticism or peer-to-peer review. And all of a sudden now we're building more emphasis on those cultural things that'll help in the classroom setting or outside the classroom setting later on in life. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's huge. And that's something we're going to really work on doing right now as far as this summer, building that curriculum up so that way it progresses to that manner. And we're just going to have a checkoff list. Now we're doing things now where we pick somebody to take us through, like we have our coaching sheet and we'll go, hey, well, who wants to coach warm up in our prehab? So we'll give it to, we have kids that, hey, I want to do it. I want to do it. Okay, here you go. Here's your time to shine, man. But, here you go. And so you might have a freshman girl teaching a class of 15 kids, and some will clam up, I coach, I need help, but the biggest thing is they learn how to speak publicly in front of people. They know how to do things. I might go to a senior boy and go, hey, when we go halfway through the warm up, ask how to demonstrate the exercise. You don't know how to do it, So now now there's a problem. Now they have to overcome some type of perseverance because someone doesn't know how to do exercise. Now it's challenging them to see if they really know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So you put them in situational awareness. It's just like a job, right? Like if I'm working at Chick-fil-A and a customer comes up and goes, hey, this is an order I don't want, or I didn't order this. This is, there's an issue here. Are they going to clam up? Or are they going to, how are they going to react to that situation? You know what I'm saying? So we're trying to do things like that from a leadership perspective. And I don't think it's any different than anywhere else. It's just things that I've learned. What I would eventually, when I was at UNC Charlotte, working with football, we did something from a perspective is our weight training sessions were all athlete run. So we would, and this is something, from a football perspective, they led everything. So we didn't have to lead anything. We just had our racks and we coached everything. So we were there coaching everything up, but they were leading the session. So, and just to give an example of what it really went through is they would line outside the door and about 5 minutes or 10 minutes till, right? And we would tell them, one person would come in, we'd tell them how to set up the room. Hey, we have bench press today, put your J hooks on, number 6. We have dumbbell benches, make sure your dumbbell bench is set up. Your first set of dumbbell weight is in front of your bench. So we give all these technical cues. They would come in as groups because everybody was assigned to a rack, and they would communicate and work together and set the whole room up. And once the whole room was set up within that 10-minute limit before lift, they would all go back outside the room. All right. And then if it wasn't, then that was something that would be, at first we didn't give them all the information. We'd slowly milk them in there. Right. But eventually they'd set everything up. And then the first person would come in and they'd go, hey, we're going to do warm up X, Y, and Z. Make sure you're lined up on this. Tell everybody you're running the warm up. We'd actually give the athlete the warm up sheet, and they would be there, running. They'd go through the warm up, everything. They get to their rack. Their rack would always be set up if we're doing, some type of clean variation, or if we're doing, deadlift or whatever we're doing on the rack. And we had a timer on the rack. And we go, hey, every minute warm up sets, 1 minute in between, work sets 2:30. You're doing prehab in between this and this. All of a sudden, hey, first guy's up. He's on rack number 1. Hey, first guy up, first set. Everybody go. The whole series goes through. He hits the timer. 1 minute goes through. Okay, hey, second man up. Second set. He's calling everything out every set as he goes through. So now he's leading everything up. And then once we're done with our main set, we tell him, hey, half the room is going to be over there with Coach X over here. Half the room is going to be over here on Coach Y over here. These are the 2 exercises we're doing. We need half on lat pull down, half on dumbbell bench. You're on the other side of the room. Half is doing bent row and half is doing pull-ups or something. You know what I'm saying? Well, then he splits the room in half. Everybody dictates out. And then from there, we give them coaching cues. So coach is standing next to him, just feeding it in their ears. Okay, hey, you got 30 seconds. Get everybody ready. Make sure they're in this position. And this kid's calling out, and everybody's moving like an army of ants into that position. So there's other coaches that visit us to see how we do that and stuff. It takes time, but it is the most efficient thing. Now, all of a sudden, when they go on the field, right, and you have somebody say, hey, this is what we're doing for play X, Y, and Z. This is the defense that we're running. When something goes wrong, there's an audible or something going on, people are communicating, they're talking, and they know how to get instruction off one another, right? They're not crashing under pressure. Yeah. Same thing was on our running drills. We would do a lot of running drills or conditioning, and we did very similar things. So we would, we would tell, if we're doing a certain drill, we need to touch a line with a certain hand. Or if we need to start with a certain foot, we would, maybe they're on the goal line, lined up all the way down, and we just tell the one person, hey, right foot up. And all of a sudden he tells another person, he hollers down, hey, right foot up. And it all of a sudden just goes right down the line. And now they have to talk to that person next to him, because how many times do you have somebody running or doing something and they're just going through the motions, right? They're not active in there. They're not doing anything. So we're challenging them with cognitive function while they're fatigued, in a fatigued state. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's something, I worked in the military for a short period of time. And that's something we did in the military too, is we would condition guys, and we, our mental cognitive technicians would come down, and they would show a map, a schematic of something. It may be something simple, like a room that had like certain pictures or something like that. And they would do some type of drill or some type of workout, and they would come back, and it would be a very similar picture, but something would be missing. And the individual would have to mention what was missing in the picture, just from that perspective, right? So now all of a sudden they understand that. But that's from a tactical standpoint, from as far as warfare goes, that's something where you have to, think under high pressure situations, because it's a life or death situation, right? And we kind of, a lot of individuals took that and put it in the collegiate setting. And I'm not saying the collegiate setting is anything like the military, because it's not. And I really don't believe in, you'll see a lot of schools use military logos or something, or military quotes for their program, which is all great and fine and grand. But military is 100% different than collegiate athletics or any athletics. Yeah. But those are kind of things how we kind of, use those properties and really built those character levels up. And it's huge. I think that's a huge dynamic that is lost in transition sometimes. And I think it's something that, I call those like anything that's an attention to detail aspect. I call those big rocks. Like the big rocks are important, right? Like, if you break a big rock down, all of a sudden you have pebbles. And if you have a pebble everywhere, it's a huge situation, because now you just took something that's really big and it made a lot of smaller problems, which we don't need, right? So if we take care of the big rocks and they don't get broken down, then you don't have any of these smaller. You don't have communication issues. You don't have little things that rise up when the going gets tough, right? So I think those are huge things, and I think that has really helped people grow as people, because now when they're transcended into the real world, when they're working real jobs or whatnot, they can communicate open with people, and speak their mind rather than just taking direction all the time, right? Yeah. I think that's huge, is self-thinking and doing the right thing rather than just following someone else's lead all the time. I think independent thinking is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the type of where you're coaching and educating these kids are the tools, more like life tools, not only obviously 100%. Right now, but as they get older, it's something to think back on and say, hey, like, I'm so thankful that, Coach Patrick helped me out, learn these things. It's coming to benefit me now. Sometimes kids don't look at it or think of it like, oh, why am I doing this? It's not gonna, benefit me.
And I think, if you look at you look at Twitter strength conditioning, or you look at these different things, so many people are arguing about X's and O's, right? Like, oh, you should be doing this sets of reps. You should be doing this exercise. The X's and O's, they matter to a point as far as physical development goes, right? But at the end of the day, the X's and O's are just X's and O's. I mean, any exercise can be supplement for another exercise, and you're going to get some type of stimulant out of it, right? Mm-hmm. The big things that really make a huge factor, and they're not to say cultural things, because you're not really changing the culture, but it really comes down to, just like I just talked about, those little tangibles as far as communicating, being good leaders, doing the right thing, teaching those things. That not only makes a difference in your team atmosphere or team attitude, but it's going to help those individuals later on in life down the road, right? Like, they're not going to remember, whether you did close grip bench or whether you did dumbbell bench or whether you did incline bench, they're not going to remember any of that. They're going to remember, hey, I remember when I had to lead this group and people followed my lead, and now I have confidence to do so, when before I was just the guy in the back of the class that, just hid behind my book and had my phone out, texting somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of a sudden now they're more alert. They're learning better. They're understanding instructions better, and they want to lead because they got some type of gratification out of that. They got some type of, hey, you did a great job today. A coach saying, hey, you did a great job, is probably one of the best to a lot of kids. It's one of the best things they could actually hear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's something we as coaches, we're always there to pinpoint the negative, right? Like if you watch social media and you go, oh, that squat wasn't low enough. Oh, oh, look at that clean, that he didn't do the X, Y, and Z wrong. He did that stuff wrong. And we do that with our kids too. And all of a sudden those kids start tuning you out, right? They're like, why is this coach always harping on me? Like I don't, I know I'm good. Like I don't need to be a negative. So I just started, I started not calling out the negative things, but calling out the positive things. So like I don't want to say I'm against conditioning tests, but it is what it is. But that's a whole nother conversation. But if we had a conditioning test that coach wanted to run or something like that, and usually, if you don't make a conditioning test, you're not going to practice. You're going to have to run more or something like that. And you pick out the negatives. Hey, Bobby, you did that wrong. You didn't make your times, or Susie, you didn't do that. Well, all of a sudden, I started giving praise to the people that passed with flying colors. Oh, hey, we had 18 people that passed it. You guys were great. Nice work today. Good job. And then all of a sudden, these people that were in the back, they start pushing a little harder. You know what I'm saying? Now they're like, oh, I want some praise. You know what I'm saying? Like, or the guy that always, always comes in last. He didn't come in last, but maybe he come in halfway or something. Hey, that was good every day, buddy. Keep it up. Like keep moving. All of a sudden now he keeps on pushing a little bit more because he's got a little bit positive. Because the worst thing you do is someone's doing something negative. You just keep putting them further and further in the hole. You know what I'm saying? Now all of a sudden they don't like come to practice. They start showing up later. They kind of have some negative words from other teammates. Now there's little inner squaddle, little inner squatter, like little click. Yeah, and all of a sudden it just starts rolling downhill, right? Where if you're just totally praising and going, hey, trying to pick good days and stacking good days, now all of a sudden you got something going the right direction, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, appreciate this conversation.
For sure.
I think whoever listens to this will get a lot out of it. There's some great nuggets to take from here, especially those that work with young athletes. Like I look at it this way. Like, I totally agree with you on the X's and O's. Like at the end of the day, like the way that it happens, the way that it's executed, obviously it's really important. But we're creating leaders of the future. I look at it that way. And, athletics and all this stuff is going to end at some point for all these kids. It's either going to end their senior year in high school or after 2 or 3 years or 3 or 4 years in college. And then they're in the, private, the sector of working. So, it's important that we not only obviously prepare them, but like you said, the tangible things that they could take away from you as a coach that will help them later in life. And I think those are the important things that will help a lot of these kids. And I think you hit it on the nail with these ways that you guys are doing it. I'm like trying to absorb it and trying to figure out, okay, like how can I do this where I'm at my business? Like, cause
100%. I think that's even from the private sector. I think having like leadership academies, and people have done it, having leadership academies, having things where you're able to bring, especially in the private sector, bringing all those individuals together that you work with. And all of a sudden, now they're a cohesive unit, right? Like whether it's a once a week meeting or a once a month meeting. And now it's something more than just training, right? Now it's, I don't want to say it's a brotherhood because that's a cheesy term, but you have this academy that now you have these kids, and if they come back after they train for a certain period of time, it's something that's the training is not going to only draw them back, but this academy is going to draw them back too, because they feel part of something, right? And I think that's what we all want to do is we all want to feel part of something. Have this. That's why we're all coaches, and that's why we all deal with athletics. But if you can do it in a transcending manner that not only includes athleticism, because once they leave, just like you said, if they do get injured and athletics isn't part of them anymore, at least they still have that group of people they can still come back to. You can still be a part of, right? Like, I think that's a huge thing. I don't know if anybody really does it in the private sector. I know as far as those kind of things in their own thing, but I think it would be something that would be the retention of clients. I think would be huge.
Yeah.
Because you would come back, and I think that's the name of the game in the private sector is just that retention. Even, I think even play flooring, right? Play the Play Academy and stuff like that. They kind of do like a mentorship program where they every week you meet or something like that, and all of a sudden, you do it for so many weeks, you learn different things, you hear everybody's story, but all of a sudden, you feel part of something a lot bigger. Yeah. So you don't want to miss it. You're less likely to miss it. You'll skip X, Y, and Z. You'll skip watching your favorite show on Netflix because you want to go be part of this thing where you're learning and it's bringing something different than just training, right? And I think that's a whole perspective. But we could probably feed off of 1,000 conversations off of this talk. But I really appreciate you having me on here. And like I said, is truly beneficial. And hopefully I drop some knowledge that somebody could grow from it and go from there. I think these podcasts are great. It's just getting just a little bit of information that you can use, and then you can reach out to that person and feed off of it even more, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I always kind of end because, doesn't matter if it's a parent, if it's a kid, if it's another coach that could, send this sort of question that I ask and answer. What is something that, obviously we're talking about a lot about athletics, kids. What is something that from, over the course of your time as a coach, you think something that kids could really, get to help them, put themselves in a position to be a better athlete, be a better person, be a better, role model for maybe their brother, sister, whatever, cousin, just so it helps them, do better things in life as they grow.
I think the biggest thing is, I love to read. I think it's a huge thing. And I think everybody enjoys reading books about topics that they're knowledgeable about, mm-hmm. right? Like they try to gain more knowledge about, but I think reading things or coming in contact with people on things that maybe you're just not familiar with, just to get a different perspective, right? Like, growing up, I was always into training and learning about training and stuff like that. And now my whole mindset has kind of shifted a little bit more to just leadership perspectives or understanding more psychology aspects as far as dealing with different personalities and stuff. And I think that's huge. It's just go off something, you might like training or you may like a certain sport, but learning how other coaches, maybe I love baseball, but maybe something I learned more about lacrosse or learn something about a different perspective or how somebody does something like that. And reading books, I think there's more enough books out there from different coaches, getting different perspectives. Just so you know what certain coaches are looking for or what they've gone through, right? Or even those kind of things. So, I think those things are important. If it's something that leadership is perspective, there's always websites, there's always individuals that you can reach out to. And even social media, social media is huge. The biggest thing, I think the biggest asset, obviously some things on social media are pretty poor. It kind of draws us away from a lot of things that we would normally do, but the ability to communicate with those individuals on social media is huge, right? So, if you find something that's interesting or whatnot, just don't message that individual on social media. But if there's some way you can directly contact that person and talk to that person and not hide behind a screen or talk on a screen, make yourself a little comfortable and go outside the box of your comfort zone to reach out to those people. So those are little things. Just try something different. You don't know if you're going to like it or not. My family, none of my family really were athletes or worked athletics or did anything like that. So I'm the oddball, right? I'm around athletics all the time. I played athletics. My parents, worked 9-to-5 jobs in a factory or worked midnight shift, and they're used to working all the time, which I think is where I get a lot of my work ethic. But they don't understand what I do. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a matter of getting different perspectives. I think a lot of coaches are in that same, because these opportunities weren't around when they were growing up, right? So just, find something that interests you and do something just a little bit different, just so you get a different perspective of things. Because you know your perspective, but you never know what somebody else is thinking also. So that's kind of a little thing,
Exactly.
I don't know if that you're looking for, but
that's good.
Sometimes I just ramble on about things. So I think it's good. So
the continuing education, that kind of stuff is important for young kids, because I think they do tend to focus so much on their sport and getting better at their sport, and understanding that there's more to life than that. And there's other avenues that are going to open up for you if you kind of dabble in different areas. So I appreciate that. That's a good perspective. So again, I thank you, appreciate it. This is an awesome conversation. And I again thank you, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening.
No, you too. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Train to Perform with Julian Sisman. Learn how you can work with Julian in a personal training session, either online or in person, at prepareforperformance.com. And follow on social media for more tips on training, fitness, and sports performance. On Twitter at jsisman_PFP and Instagram at prepareforperformance.